Here are the most common issues associated with the 80-volt battery-powered Kobalt electric chainsaw. In no particular order. What if you plug in the battery and it just won't start? Here are the 4 things you need to check. First of all, make sure that the brake is clear of debris and operating freely. To access that, you'll need to take off the chainsaw guard, and then you can look in there and see if there's any debris associated inside the switch mechanism. Once you've done that, make sure the trigger is operating and free of wood chips. Because you know, as you're cutting, there's just gonna be wood chips flying everywhere, and those wood chips are gonna get everywhere. So they may end up in the trigger mechanism. You may wanna get a can of compressed air, or if you have access to a compressor, blow it out and blow out the whole area real clean. The next thing is to check your battery. Make sure the battery terminals are free of debris as well. Make sure the battery compartment is free of wood chips as well. Blow them out real good. Keep those contacts clean. And speaking of the battery, see if you can plug in the battery in another device. If it works in this device but doesn't work in that thing, continue troubleshooting. If it doesn't, put your battery pack back on the charger. You may have an issue with the battery. Putting it back on the battery charger is going to let it discharge and get a new fresh charge. If that still doesn't get it, it may be time to get it serviced. And finally, if you've checked all these things and you've been running it for a while, it may just be overheating. I was using mine all afternoon. I let it set in the sun. Big mistake, and the motor just overheated. You give it time in the shade, let it cool off, and I was back to work. Another common problem is the chain just keeps falling off the bar. You want to keep your chain tight, snug, but not over tight. So what you'll do is, as you're running it, it's going to get sloppier and sloppier, because as the metal overheats, it expands, and so you're going to have more play in there. So periodically, you're going to want to loosen the chain bar and give a little turn in this model clockwise, just to snug it up and take that sloppiness out of the chain. If you do that periodically, you'll be less likely to have the chain fall off the bar. Of course, always tighten it back up after you got the snugness back in the chain. And always return the wrench back in the handle. That's real convenient. If it falls off completely, you're gonna have to stop and put the chain back on the bar. You may even have to wait for it to cool down before you can touch it. So it's much better to just keep the chain snug and not have to put the chain back on the bar. If your chainsaw is not cutting like it used to, check to make sure these 3 things. First of all, make sure that the chain is not dull. Is it throwing sawdust instead of wood chips? That's going to be a good strong tell that you may need either a new chain or to take it time to sharpen it. Yes, it is possible to install a chainsaw backwards, and you'll throw some dust, but you won't be cutting. So make sure your chainsaw chain is in correctly. Make sure they have a full reservoir of oil, and also make sure that your chainsaw is free of debris and wood chips. That's going to keep the oil from flowing onto the chain. So clean that out, and you may reestablish that oil reservoir, the oil flow back onto the chain, because you really need to keep that oil going in order to have correct cutting. And while we're on the subject of oil, the oil may just not be coming out. You'll know this because you're going to smell burning wood, and you're going to have reduced cutting as well as just wood burning instead of cutting. So make sure once again that your oil is full and your oiler is free of debris. Take off the cover and then get in there and look and make sure that the oiler is free of all wood chips. What if your chainsaw is leaking oil? Well, it's designed to, because it's designed to constantly flow and throw oil out onto the chain. So when you're storing it up for the season, you're just gonna have a constant dripping. So the best way to avoid that is to empty the oil reservoir when it's not being used. What if the chainsaw suddenly stops during cutting? That's caused by 2 reasons. Either the engine is overheated like I talked about, or if the battery is discharged and just drained a charge. So what you're going to want to do is put it back on the charger and make sure it takes a charge, and also let your chainsaw cool off while it's charging. What if your chain brake is depressed and will not release? Well, that's probably going to be caused by any debris or wood chips that's in that mechanism. So you may want to have to remove the battery and take off the chain bar cover and get in there, and like I said, clean it out, especially if you have any access to a compressor. You can blow that out and blow out all those wood chips and free it up. You may be back in business in no time. And a little maintenance goes a long way. Just by keeping it clean and free of debris and wood chips, you're gonna really get back in business in no time. Does this cover all your issues with your chainsaw? If it doesn't, drop them in the comments below. We'll answer them in turn. I'm Eddie Field with Field Guided DIY. For more helpful tips and suggestions on tools, click the image on your screen now. Oh, be sure and like and subscribe and ring the little bell so you don't miss another exciting episode of Field Guided DIY. I'll see you in the next video.